So, welcome everybody, and hello and welcome. Good evening from Karlsruhe to this first and live webinar from movisens about mobile sensing with movisens XS. I think we are just going to wait maybe another 30 seconds until maybe, the last late people come in and join us for our webinar. A few viewers are already online, I can see that. So if you would like to just, drop me a message in the chat section, if you can see and hear me clearly, that would be really nice. Or, whether there are any issues, I think it should be fine. But, better be safe than sorry. Perfect.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. That's amazing. So I'll just wait a couple more seconds and then we are ready to go. It's not only me presenting today, I can already tell you that. My colleague Darren is going to join me later in the presentation and telling you about these special features of mobile sensing within movisens XS. All good, perfect. Welcome, Lina. Welcome, Katharina. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. All are very excited about mobile sensing with movisens XS. I think we can start. Johanna, L, everything's fine. Perfect. So everyone, welcome again to our first webinar from movisens about mobile sensing with movisens XS. Today's topics are the following. I will just quickly first tell you a little bit about our company. If you don't already know things about our company, I will tell you about the experience sampling solution from movisens, which is movisens XS, just in order to know what we are talking about, and because mobile sensing is using our platform movisens XS. And then I will hand you guys over to Darren, who will tell you about all the different possibilities that we have using the mobile sensing features within movisens XS. And we will have a Q&A section towards the end of the webinar, probably in the last 10 minutes. So please feel free to just drop us your question during the webinar in the public chat section. Don't worry if we do not answer it immediately, we will just collect all the different questions and answer them in the Q&A section. So let's get started. So just quickly, some facts about our company, movisens. We are a spin-off of the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and our company was formed by an interdisciplinary research group of psychologists, sports scientists, pedagogies, and engineers, basically, who focused their research on the relationship between stress, physical and mental performance. And therefore, they developed solutions for ambulatory assessment and mobile monitoring. We at movisens are on the market for over 10 years now, and our headquarters is in Karlsruhe, where we are being live from now today. And we've been growing over the years, and we are continuously, we are keen to provide researchers with precise sensors and comprehensive tools for ambulatory assessment. I would like to give you a quick overview about the different variety of applications for solutions provided by movisens for ambulatory assessment. On the left side of the sheet, you can see that we are able to capture objective data from participants using one of our different mobile sensors. For example, our Move Force sensor, which is an activity sensor for measuring physical activity. We are also able to capture data about the autonomic state of a person, sleep behavior, and other objective data. On the other hand, we are also able to collect and provide solutions for capturing subjective data, which is our experience sampling solution movisens XS, to capture data about, for example, emotions of participants. You can already see that mobile sensing is one of our solutions for ambulatory assessment. And this is part of our experience sampling solution, movisens XS. And I will, in a couple of minutes, tell you a little bit more about our experience solution, movisens XS, and how we will also show you how to create a study on movisens XS, for example. I think what's important and special about movisens is that we are a company that is able to provide not only solution for one part of ambulatory research, which is objective or subjective data, we are able to combine objective with subjective data in the range of interactive ambulatory assessment. So you can you have the possibility to use the captured objective data from participants, for example, the physical activity, and use these special parameters to trigger, for example, questionnaires on the experience sampling platform using the smartphone of the participant to capture truly insightful data and combining objective and subjective data for your research. So how do our solutions for these different applications look like? The product range of movisens offers a different range of activity sensors for the measurement of physical activity, for example, as well as ECG data for the calculation of heart rate variability, for example. We have a sensor for measuring EDA data for parameters like electrodermal activity or electrodermal skin conductance level or skin conductance response, or sleep parameters. So we are a developer of mobile sensor systems, and we do also offer and develop software for and around our sensor systems to be able to provide you solutions not only for capturing data with objective data with our sensors, but also using the software solutions from movisens for interactive ambulatory assessment. I have one sensor here. I can maybe quickly show you. This is like, for example, the ECG move sensor. It's pretty small. It comes with a cradle to connect to the PC. This is the sensor. It is pretty handy. It can be placed attached to the participant, for example, in different locations on the body, depending on the way the parameter that you would like to use for your study, for example. So why in general using ambulatory assessment for your research? It's a pretty easy to answer question because it has a lot of advantages to use ambulatory assessment for your research. So ambulatory assessment in general uses mobile sensor systems to create insights not only on the behavior, but also on physiology, psychology, and context of people's life in general. It increases the accuracy of your research. It reduces the retrospective biases, and it helps to enhance in general the generalization, tough word, on your research results. So it really helps to improve the quality of your research. And it is a very modern and effective way to investigate dynamic processes that might happen and might take part in your specific research field. It helps you to point out specific interactions which might stay hidden, for example, if you are not able to use ambulatory assessment in your research. So I think we're quite good to go for the first section. I will just quickly tell you about our experience sampling solution movisens XS, which is the base for using mobile sensing features presented or provided by movisens. So the basic concept is pretty easy of our experience sampling solution. We have the web platform on the one side and a mobile app on the other side, which works, they work together in order to provide you all the capabilities that we need for experience sampling. So on the web platform, you have the possibility to design your own study. You can, add questionnaires and decide with the the design that you would like to use for your study. Define your own sampling scheme, for example, and just connect the different participants to your study to perform the study on their devices. You can also download your results on the platform as well later. The app is installed on the smartphone of the participant. The smartphone will be connected to your study using, for example, a simple screenshot of a QR code or a link. And then the study is good to go and will run on the smartphone of the participant. And whenever you decide in your study design, for example, to trigger an alarm, the participant will be informed and notified and is able to, give you input for your questionnaire running on the app. The app will automatically upload the results to a server, and you can download the results and see live results on the platform, access them, download them, and perform your take a look at your results pretty immediately at the moment that it was captured. So that's the basic concept. It's based on Android and on the Android system, so it works on Android devices, and it's the basic system for using our mobile sensing features. That's just a simple sheet to show you how the different possibilities of the sampling schemes are. Darren will show you a little later and give you a little bit of a deeper dive into our platform. So this is just to give you an overview. Like you see, you are able to just simply drag and drop all the different blocks that you would like to add to your sampling. For example, you can define the time whenever a participant should be informed and notified about a questionnaire that he has to answer. It's a range of different possibilities. It's pretty easy to use, and you don't need, for example, any programming skills to design your own study on our experience sampling platform. So just to give you, a short conclusion and a quick overview, I already talked about the advantages of ambulatory assessment. Our solution for capturing subjective data through experience sampling is movisens XS. It is pretty easy to set up your own study. Just to, your study design, you have, the freedom to prepare your study exactly the way it should be for your research question, that it fits perfectly to your requirements. And it is a very secure platform because we do only have transmit data through encrypted data transfer on the platform or from the platform to the server, for example, and the server where the data is hosted or is stored, the server is hosted in a secure environment in Germany. And as a company, as a German company, we do focus on data security and data privacy. So this is an important issue for us, and you don't have to worry about any upcoming issues with data security or data privacy using our experience sampling solution, movisens XS. Okay, so far so good. I will hand you over, guys, now to my colleague Darren, and he will tell you more about the special possibilities that we have using mobile sensing features within our movisens XS platform. So I hope Darren is ready. I will hand you over, guys, and we'll see what's going on.
Okay, thanks, Moritz. You want to mute the microphone just in case I'm shouting too loud, my colleague over here. Okay, so
as Moritz gave you a little bit of an overview on the movisens XS platform, I'm just going to go into the mobile sensing functionality that's available within it. Now, just remember, whenever you have your smartphone, within it, there are a whole series of sensors that are gathering data pretty much all of the time. And whilst companies like Google and Apple love to have access to this data, so even if you have a phone without a SIM card in it, or your phone is in flight mode, it's still actually collecting that data for the next time it goes to a network to actually send it back. So we're going to go through what some of the things are that we actually capture, or that are being captured on the phone, and how we might be able to use that in a research context, where hopefully we can give you guys access to these sorts of things, and maybe you can do some net good for the world. So in your smartphone, you have a whole array of different sensors that are being constantly in communication. So probably in particular, the things that we want to look at the most, as far as the usage goes, are the actual screen itself, the actual usage of the phone, so things like the applications that are being used on it at the time. Temperature sensor is always like a handy one that they really like, because then you know whether the phone's actually being worn on the body or if it's being carried in a bag. The acceleration sensor gives you and the gyroscope give you a very rough indication of physical activity. And we're talking a very rough indication. It can usually, in combination with things like the GPS, it can show, okay, they're on a tram now because it's stopping at certain intervals, or they're on a bus because it's following this line, or maybe they're in a car because they're stopping at traffic lights and there's acceleration signals from those points. So all of these little things are things that are actually being gathered about us by our smartphones, our little personal trackers that we have with us every day. And as Maurice said, it's important that in your studies, it's really nice to get a collection of subjective and objective data. So objective data can be really wonderful on its own, but sometimes you need additional information to give context to what the actual moment of, like, the physiological value. So if you've got something like EDA, electrodermal activity, you're very much interested in, say, the sympathetic nervous system component of the autonomic nervous system. When you see a savage spike in the EDA signal, you might want to find out why. When you're stepping out of the lab and going into an ambulatory environment, having additional context as to why you're getting some sort of physiological response can be very valuable. So triggering off of those sort of things, which is something we'll touch on a little bit later towards the end of the webinar, can be good. But what you can also look at is the behavior and the context on their actual smartphone. So like you can see, we've got a small amount of physiology, that you can kind of work out from the smartphone. So movement steps, but you can get things like temperature, interactions, so smartphone interactions, app usage, so are they constantly on social media applications, etc. These are all sorts of things that can build a profile of a person that can be used in the context of your study to give more information about the participants' day-to-day life. So we'll go a little bit more in depth. So here are the key sort of 5 elements that we're using with sort of mobile sensing and movisens XS. So just bulk usage. So how long is the screen on? What are they actually doing whilst they're on the actual device? So are they just constantly browsing the same different things? Are they always going back to the same apps? Are they using it in a more minimalist way? Tracking usage, which can then also lead later to being able to design interventions based on that usage. So use of the integrated sensors, so things along the lines of the accelerometer, the GPS in particular. So actual location information can tell you a lot about a person's habits and behaviors, especially if you're tracking things like addiction. So also behaviors in an occupational context. So being able to trigger a questionnaire to someone when they first arrive at the workplace, or a time delay after they arrive at their workplace, or when they first get home after work, and asking questions. So it removes some of the scattershot approach of random timing of questionnaires throughout the day that is sort of the stock standard of experience sampling, and allows us to get a little bit more focused. So the position tracking, I obviously mentioned before. Social sensing. So who are you interacting with on a day-to-day basis? How often are you spending time around them? So this can be used like by logging the Bluetooth signals from every phone. Every phone will have a different Bluetooth identifier. And so as you come into contact within a 10-meter radius of that person, and then as they leave, and how long was spent in between. Now, obviously, there is going to be limitations on this sort of element, but For within a building, it can be really helpful in a particular design setup where you want to see where people are congregating the most in say, like an exhibition or something along those lines. You can have multiple Bluetooth locator beacons and triangulate their position based on their proximity to and the number of beacons that they're interacting with. And mobile sensing for interactive ambulatory assessment and interactive ambulatory interventions, which is kind of our specialty. This is the area where we are definitely the main players in this sort of game. So utilizing this information in order to not only find out information, but then to use that information later to structure an intervention based on the behavior. So talking about the assessment of the usage, we can research the usage of different applications. So you can actually elect to find different and track different applications and the usage, or something simple like just that the device is running or the display is on and off, like music, chat apps, phone calls, SMSs, and it's all anonymized. So you'll see that a message has come in from a particular number or an outgoing message from a particular number, and it'll just be a hash string. And it'll be that same hash string if they're constantly interacting with the same person, or a different hash string for another identifiable number. The sensors of the smartphone, so logging nearby devices we touched just before, and that's one of those key interactions. And obviously with the tracing app and all these developments that have become very, I guess, vogue at the moment, yeah, it's sort of old news for us. We've been able to kind of do this for a while now, where setting up different beacons will allow us to determine who's interacting with who on a relatively regular basis. Obviously, you've got to factor in that Bluetooth will transmit through walls, and if you're sitting back to back with someone in an office environment, you're not actually interacting with them, but you're still getting their Bluetooth beacon. So there are obviously limitations, which is where having the questionnaires gives you that added context data that you can then refine these things. And physical activity and steps, as I said before, you're only ever going to get a really, really broad, generalized sort of figure for that. You're never going to get anything very accurate, because people will carry their smartphone in different ways, in different positions, in different parts of their bodies, in their bag. It's, if you really actually would want to incorporate physical activity into your study, either speak to us about one of our physiological sensors, or speak to someone about a proper physiological sensor that can actually track the data in some meaningful and validated way. So position tracking, which is kind of one of our favorites here, is really getting additional context information based on their location. So finding out when they're there, what made them go there. And you can set a geo fence, which I jump ahead too quickly. You can set a geofence with any sort of radius based on a longitude and a latitude, and you can either make a decision, you can make the choice that when they enter that particular geofence, they can then receive an alarm, which then sends them to a particular form that you've defined for them to fill out. Or once they've stayed in that particular geofence for a certain amount of time, then you could send the form, or upon their exiting that geofence. So you might want to do a after work, but before they go home, or before they go to their next destination in the evening. And you can easily set that by setting a nice tight location around their building that, you know, maybe doesn't get them when they go for lunch, but when they're several hundred meters away from their workplace, they get the alarm, which sort of says, okay, let's talk about how your workday was, while it's still fresh in their memory. So the key to a lot of the experience sampling is capturing the moment when you can. You really want to get the information while it's as fresh as possible and avoid all the recollective biases that will happen. So tracking the interactions, as I said, a little bit through actual proximity is one key, but also the social interaction with the phone calls, the SMS, the chat apps on the phone, and so on, all kind of counts towards that social interaction time. And you can easily distinguish. So when you go into something like the logs that we gather, you can see that someone's opened WhatsApp, but you can see, oh no, they're just looking at their status, or they're looking at someone else's status. They're not actually chatting with anyone at that particular moment. And then you can see, oh no, they've entered a chat now, they've written to this, or they've received a chat notification. So building up this profile of people's social interactions with the world through their device. Now, here's the important things. It's always going to depend on the capability of the smartphone. On our documentation site, which is something you'll get after the webinar, so at docs.movisens.com, it gives a good list of the recommended smartphones that we say are really good for running movisens XS. But you also have a very wide variety in the Android Nouveau. So you can have some very robust ones and some quite problematic ones. Often when you're doing things along the lines of logging and especially tracking location. So our location feature works, like the tracking of the GPS works through a combination of the Wi-Fi, the cell tower, and the GPS satellites at different levels of accuracy. If you're someone who's like a postman or a courier and you're constantly in motion, it will drain the battery very, very quickly of your phone. Otherwise, we have sort of methods which allow it to go into sort of standby mode and slowly decrease the accuracy the more stationary you are to save power on the phone. And then as we sense you're moving again, we then kind of increase the sensors and the signals that we're drawing upon to log the data. So that's something that's important to notice. Yeah, I don't know how much more I can warn about physical activity tracking using a phone versus an actual activity sensor without becoming really redundant, but I'll do it again. Really, just if you're going to the effort of setting up such an important study and you have an important study question and you're getting really great contextual data, you really should, if you can back it up with really solid and valid physiological data. And our sensors are one of the more expensive, yet we offer an incredible quality, and we're for the people who understand that quality is in its own a quantity. You know, you can then recruit less people because you're getting reliable information. So, and there's Android limitations when using the applications as well, in particular cases of logging the phone calls and the SMS. Sometimes it can be a little bit temperamental. Now, we're going to go into our next little phase where we're going to try sharing my screen, and we'll see how exciting this turns out. All right, so technology, and here I have a little bit of a mobile sensing style sampling schema that I've been working on. So I just go through a couple of the blocks in general. So study running. This is the key block of everything. This actually is your study administration block in movisens XS. It allows you to do different things. So for instance, if you're doing a study in a very particular environment which doesn't allow mobile phones for certain reasons, you could actually lock all their applications. However, if you're using mobile sensing, that's going to be completely redundant because then the phone wouldn't work except for movisens XS. So next we have our time range. So this tells us what time we're actually going to run certain elements of the study. Now, if you're actually logging information, so we have a logging table over here. So here we have the time. You can set things like a date range for it to run, or a particular time range, which I've got here just from 8 in the morning till 10 at night. Or you could set fixed sampling days. So if you want to stagger the start of your participants, but you want them to go through a series of different sequential days of sampling and forms, you could use a sampling day and have sampling days 1, 3, 5, do one set of questionnaires and the rest do something else. And then we have things like fixed time or random time, or immediately, initially, button press, like all sorts of variations on when people will receive an alarm and get their forms to fill out. So when it comes to actually logging the information though from the sensors, within the smartphone, we have a whole range here of all the different elements that we've kind of discussed so far. What I generally recommend is just when your study's actually running, you just link them up here. So it's just a really simple case of drag and drop something. So is there something I don't have yet? Log static locations. Just drag it over and drag. And if you happen to be red-green colorblind, because it's a lovely little red, yellow, green traffic light sort of setup, if you look at the shapes of the boxes, the red boxes all have rounded corners, 4 rounded corners. The yellow ones have 2 rounded ones at the top but squared at the bottom. And the green ones are all square, the final steps. So, and just by simply dragging and dropping and linking up, now, whenever I start a participant on this particular study, oh, the validation errors, because I missed something. See if you can spot what I'm, hang on, I'll just delete that module because I haven't put all the rest of the information in for it. So, in this particular study, as soon as someone logs on and they start the study, it's going to start logging all of the information about the smartphone that we've dragged here. And it's going to be saving that into a CSV file and also into a Unisens log file. So which we'll probably touch a little bit about. If anyone's had any dealing with our sensors, you'll know about the Unisens log file. In here, we have a few different elements here. So here it's part of, I guess, one of the more standard applications of experience sampling, a random time. So between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., there'll be 5 prompts with a minimum time of half an hour between them. And then at random times, an alarm will sound, and then a form will be delivered to the participant when they answer the alarm, and they fill out the form, and then it uploads the results the next time they're connected to a Wi-Fi network. Or you could decide that they can have it on the cell network. So you've got options and variable choices there, depending on where you need to conduct your study. So you can actually conduct a study, it's important to note, when you don't have Wi-Fi access or when you don't have cell access. As long as when you pair the smartphone initially, you have Wi-Fi so that it can download the information onto the phone into the app, then it will run perfectly fine for, well, for as long as there's storage on the phone. So minimum of, I'd say a couple of months of logging data would not be an issue at all. Here I've given the participant an option to actually press a button to start a form. So if they decide that some event has happened that they want to actually report to me, they can just actually go in and press the button and it will bring up a form for them to actually fill out information and give me additional context as to why they felt it was necessary to actually communicate with me. Now here's where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. We have a sensor value one. So actually, I'll just show you where that's located first. So in the sensors, we have our physiological sensors, which is obviously what we recommend if you want to do anything to do with activity whatsoever. This one I've just set simply to the sensor signal as body position. We have a different range depending on the sensor that you choose. So obviously for things that are to do with EDA, require our EDA sensor. Anything to do with heart rate variability, heart rate, or RMSSD requires our ECG and activity sensor. Body position will work with any of the sensors, and it all depends on the position of the body as to what can actually be calculated. So here I'm going to be having it on the thigh, on the body, and it's going to have a value of equal to sitting or lying for at least 25 minutes. So for a bit of a sedentary style study. And we'll limit that to every 1800 seconds, so that after they've gotten a trigger, they won't get a trigger straight away again after that next 25-minute segment elapses. And then they'll come through to a form. And I've also put a little notice to let them know that it was an actual trigger. So if we just duck back and we'll have a quick look at the actual setup of movisens XS. Here is where we build our forms, and a participant trigger is the form that I was using, which just gives you a different option of a select many, and then we've got a multi-item screen, and you can either do a quick audio recording to say, what are you doing, take a picture, or write what I'm doing. So this was a study I set up for myself to test out a study design for a client, and we went through it. And because I realized that maybe I don't want to be speaking in the middle of the shops about what I'm doing, I gave myself different options as to what I could do. And then I could display when it was a sensor trigger or not, so that I knew that the sensor triggering functionality was working for the researcher. Now, what else should we cover? So here, where is all the geofence situations? So We have an app use button, which can be utilized, as it says, when the specific app is opened or closed, it can actually trigger a questionnaire. Then we have a geofence trigger. So you can set this as a latitude and longitude and a radius in meters. And then you can choose what you actually want. So is it enter? Is it stay? And if it's stay, then how long are they staying in seconds? So, and then, or is it exiting that trigger? Is it upon exit that they'll actually receive that trigger? And then you can use the other time conditions to either do that immediately, or you can, where is it, advanced zone? You can set a delay on that so that they may not get it straight away, but within a certain time of leaving the geofence trigger. Delete that node, and I think we can jump back to our PowerPoint, if you'd be so kind. Yep, so we've done that. Now, just once you've paired a phone, you can basically go in and pair a participant, and it will download, as I said, as long as they have Wi-Fi or a cell connection. And then once it's on that phone, it's going to run until you've decided the study ends. So you can set specific dates or specific number of days for the study to run. And then once those times close, it will end, or the participant can just actively end the study. And then you can download all the different results here in all those favorite sort of ways of CSV files and Excel files, and any multimedia will come as a zip. And I think it's OGG audio files and different video file formats. And we can even show the logs as far as a Unisens log file, and especially in minutes. And we can even do a tracking based on the GPS data that was collected. Now, bear in mind, the accuracy does go in and out. So the more you stay in a location, then the accuracy switches into a more broad mode. So as you're leaving that location, then the accuracy refines again. So you really can't tell where someone is, for instance, inside a building. Something like that is not going to work. But broad elements as to where they are within a city, definitely, like what location they're at in the city, also what environment they're in. It can be linked with GIS information as well. So other innovations, which we did touch on briefly, are the mobile sensing for interactive ambulatory assessment. So how this works is the physiological sensor that Moritz showed you before. It's doing two functions when it's actually on the body and recording. One, it's actually recording all of the data directly onto the sensor itself. So it's always in constant motion, recording the raw data signal. Every single minute, it looks at the previous minute's data and calculates certain values from that. So for instance, you saw before in the sampling scheme where I set body position as one. That's one of the positions that one of the parameters that's calculated and is sent. So in our sampling scheme, it's going to be receiving that information. And when it goes, hang on, I see body position is equal to sitting now for 25 minutes in a row, now I will trigger a questionnaire. So the point of this is to capture the actual moments we really want to find out more contextual information about, not to randomly hope that we encounter them throughout the day. So we have a range of different things based on ECG, so heart rate variability decreases or changes in state can be a trigger. EDA, steps, movement acceleration, all of these things can factor in as different triggers that allow you to then talk to the participant and say, okay, we just noticed that your heart rate variability dropped a substantial amount over the past 15-minute window. Is there something you could tell us about, like that gives us this context, that gives us context as to why this happened? Was it some stressful argument with your boss or with your spouse, or you had some sort of bad news, or you have a deadline pending, or maybe you were just working out at the time or doing something where the accelerometer couldn't see the signal, like doing a bench press exercise will increase your heart rate, lower your heart rate variability, but because the accelerometer is not moving in space, or riding on a really flat out on a bike will also do the same thing. It's confusing the accelerometer. It doesn't know that you're moving in space relative to it. So therefore, it will mistrigger occasionally. But on the whole, you'll be capturing more relevant information when you do actually get the triggers at the right times. So I guess the key thing is using mobile sensing also allows us to trigger questionnaires at the optimal times to answer the research questions. So utilizing things like the location, other sensors on the phone, or even interactions, you can start building a profile of your participant. And depending on what sort of intervention you're striving to achieve, you can then utilize that information from your pilot study to then build the intervention to trigger at different moments when they're starting to engage in the same activities. So the upshot is you'll get higher compliance because you're not having to trigger a lot of times throughout the day to get the relevant information you need. You're not having to try and do 12 to 15 questionnaires at random times in the hopes that you're capturing the moment that you really want. So the participants will appreciate the fact that they're getting interrupted less throughout their day. And that way you can remove a volume of your participants as well. Like it lowers your recruitment needs. And so you'll get increased variance that way. And I guess that kind of leads us towards the close. You can see here here we are, the sales team currently at movisens, our research consultants. You can feel free to get in touch with any of us, and basically if you have any needs whatsoever,
yeah, just open the chat section. We just have
okay.
One question.
All right, so we have a question at the moment. We'll just get into that. You know, as you can tell, I'm working on my before photo at the moment during COVID times based on that. So is it possible to trigger a question whenever a participant calls a specific person? Oh, that's an excellent question. I'll duck over into I'll share my screen again. We'll see if we can go into the sampling schema once more. Thailand. Does not like that, does it? Hide. Okay. Can you see that all right? Is that all good?
Ja, ist momentan noch. Du musst, glaube ich, nur den einen Bildschirm, also nur das Fenster teilen. Momentan sieht man noch deinen ganzen Bildschirm.
Okay, let's try it again then. Go back to that. No, I know why. Yep. Thailand.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Technology. It's me every time. So when it comes to the smartphone, where are we? Logging the context. So app used. So potentially you could utilize the app as the actual call, the actual phone in this particular setting, but this would be something I definitely encourage you to follow up with us about. You can actually hear on the phone. So if the user is currently talking on the phone, okay, that's probably our winner then. So the condition is true if the user is talking on the phone, and then you would possibly want to put some sort of delay, or why not immediately? We could set up that they're getting a little alarm, and they'll have a little form waiting for them when they get off the phone to fill out, which can ask them, you know, whatever sort of series of intrusive questions you feel like asking. You define whatever form the way you want, so you can build your forms quite easily. It's just, and you select which form you want just in a simple drop down box within here. Connect the dots and you're done. And whilst I'm actually sharing this, yeah, okay, I know, because yeah, I just, I'll save my cursing of the developers for another time. To actually log a participant, it's really, really simple. Just hitting add participant here. It gives you a new setup. You can start it whenever you like, or it just starts instantly when you actually do the pairing or with no end. And then you hit this code. You can either send a link to the participants via email or chat or whatever, or if someone's brave enough, they could hold their phone up to this right now and scan and participate. But no, we won't do that. But that's the key of actually getting participants. And then downloading the results is quite simple. It gives you all the different options of the different various ones you can download, or you can just download the whole batch there. And do we have any other questions? But like, yes, we do. Okay. But like this question, the question is triggered whenever the participant on the phone. Limit to that to specific calls. Oh, good question. Okay. I don't think we. Part of me says that it's probably technically possible, but it may be an issue of privacy initially. But if they all give consent, there is probably a way of establishing specific hash numbers for those participants. But as I'm not a developer, I don't want to say that this is something that's easy or doable, because yeah, I don't have to do the work. But it should. There's part of me that does say that could be possible. Anytime. Anyone else got any questions about what the possibilities are, or even what the limitations are, or any of the other elements of the services we provide? One of the things that we do provide as a company is that we are flexible and available to customize solutions for you. So if there is something specific that you really would like to be able to do, you can talk to us and find out if the actual application is like if it's logistically possible, and then we can work out some sort of development scenario for you. Now, my favorite question ever in the whole world: does the app work on Android only? Yes, it does. Will there be an iOS version? No, I don't believe there will. I mean, maybe eventually we will bow to the market on this. However, one of the other key things about movisens is we're trying to function on the I think there's probably enough German people in the chat group that they'll understand it if I say the Gemeinwohl economy model, so the economy for the common good. So if you look in most constitutions in the world, if you're lucky to come from a country that has a constitution, unlike me, you see that the purpose of all economic activity should be to serve the common good. And that's one of the principles that we uphold here at movisens. It's one of the reasons why our sensors are slightly more expensive than all the competitors, because we actually manufacture them here in Germany. So, and that's not because we're racist nationalists, it's because we know that the people who build our equipment get paid a fair working wage, they get holidays, they also get retirement, they get sickness benefits, they get all the entitlements that the rest of us will also expect to receive for our 40-hour work week. And so that's another reason why we strove to go with Android initially, is you can buy an ethical Android phone, and I'll just leave the rest unsaid, basically. Anyone else? We still have a few minutes before we're ready to wind up. To link any device. Currently, it's only possible to utilize the movisens physical activity sensors. So there is a framework for other people if they wanted to port the data or build a framework for it. We're actually in discussions with a US company about their device. They want to port some data into movisens Success because they tried very unsuccessfully to go into the experience sampling game about 9 years ago, and it was a catastrophe for them because they didn't have the resources to commit to it, or the sort of the base knowledge that the people came into movisens with to build the movisens Success platform. They would like to very much piggyback, and that's a current discussion with a researcher who wants to implement this. So theoretically, it's possible, but it's something that would be sort of a case-by-case basis, and we'd need sort of some, development funds to go towards integrating something else. If you have a range of other sort of sensors, so is there a particular sensor that you have in mind that you would like to integrate? Not now. Okay. Oh, in development. So it's actually your own sensor. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, look, there is like a framework. So if you get in touch with us, we can show you. Okay. So we can show you, we have a GitHub repository, which sort of talks about different frameworks and stuff and interaction, but it's obviously, we keep this mostly in-house for two reasons. One, we have a world-class physiology sensor range. Like it's definitely really high-grade research material. Plus, we have an excellent experience sampling platform. And when we take the responsibility on ourselves to kind of combine the two, any problems that occur are ours to solve. Whereas if we start opening the door a little bit too much to other people, we're then relying on them to potentially, to be ready and available to fix all the problems that might come up. And maybe those problems are theirs, but they say they're ours. And I don't know if you've done a research collaboration before across multiple universities with people with different products that they're bringing to the table, but you may notice that some people are more willing to be flexible and adapt and develop than other people are. So thank you very much. So makes perfect sense. Good to hear. All right. I'm glad one thing did today, if nothing else. So I guess if there's no further questions, we'll probably wind it up for now. So I'll give you another 30 seconds for someone to frantically type something, and then I will go to the very final, PowerPoint slide. It's very symbolic. That's the castle here in Karlsruhe. In case you ever want to live like, feel like you live in a fairy tale land, move to Germany, and then you can walk past the castle every day on your way to work near the forest. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so within, I think it's 24 hours, you'll all get a link in your inboxes to a replay of the webinar, so you can relive all of the excitement once more. And apart from that, I think it's probably time to close it up if no one has any further questions. And I'd like to thank you all for your attendance, and also, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful rest of your day. And please feel free to get in touch with any further questions that come up. Look, anytime for you people, no problem. No, keep the praise coming. I'm not shy. That's all right. All right, how do we shut it off? Hang on, we have to observe social distancing. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. All right, man. Do you want to do the closing off as administrator, please, Moritz? All right.
Okay, thank you guys for watching. Yeah, hope to see you next time around for our next webinar. We will for sure do this again on a different topic. Only better. This works out quite well, I think. So thank you for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.